back to another Doctor Who vinyl record Silva Screen original television soundtrack review. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most recent releases, which is of course the 20th anniversary special, The Five Doctors, as a part of the Fifth Doctor era that originally aired in the 1980s. Now this is a double LP, as composed with music by Peter Howell and the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. Now this has been released alongside the other vinyl record recently, which is of course the Second Doctor story, The Invasion, which I have previously reviewed, so if you haven't checked out that review, I definitely recommend doing so. This is the double LP this time round. That is a single release, because normally they do tend to release a single and a double together. And these have been sort of in the pipeline for quite a while. I do believe that they were originally meant to be released at the early half of this year. However, they've only just came out now, so it's very nice to finally be reviewing these after quite a long wait. The Invasion review, if you aren't a fan of vinyl records, and fear not, because it is also available in a number of different formats. The vinyl record itself is in fact £24.99 because it is a double. It is a little bit more expensive, and this is via the Silva Screen website. You can also get the CD formatted version on the Silva Screen website for £8.99, so a lot cheaper. And then you can also get the download version as well, either in MP3 or FLAC file for only £8.99 as well. So yeah, the vinyl is by far the most expensive format, but generally it is presented in a nice vinyl way, so it kind of makes it worth it, doesn't it really? You can also listen to a few of the tracks on Spotify as well if you are interested by what I say throughout this review and kind of want to give the album a go by fully committing money to it, which I suppose is a good thing in case you are kind of on the edge in this review. Like with the Invasion vinyl record review, there is a little bit of a variety when it comes to the different tracks on these releases. All of the CD versions and the download versions come with 80 tracks, however the vinyl record itself only comes with 69. This is partly because just of the vinyl spacing. I do believe you can't exactly fit over the maximum on a vinyl record, so they have decided to leave a few of them out. However, for the majority in this vinyl record, it is pretty much all of your major sounds in there, so you're not really missing out on much. And if you do want to listen to the tracks that are absent, then you can of course check them out on Spotify if you so wish. I don't actually know which ones have been missed out. I just know that they have been because there is a smaller number of tracks as listed on the website. So yeah, it's just something you can't exactly help due to the format that this is on. Much like with all my vinyl record reviews to start off with, I'm going to do a product review of the actual physical vinyl itself, just to show you what you actually get for your money. And this time round, as you can see, it is incredibly stunning indeed, and I honestly think it's probably worth every penny. So taking a look at the actual double LP product itself, now this is in fact my favourite design vinyl that they've released in the Silva Screen line so far. I absolutely love it. Clayton Hickman is responsible for this design, and it is incredibly unique and eye-catching. As you can see, we really nicely have this almost artsy, colourful splatter that is almost dripping along the side here, featuring all of the Doctors, including Richard Hurdnall as the recast First Doctor. Then a rather small image of Tom Baker there at the very bottom, because of course infamously he wasn't really in the Five Doctors much, but I really do love the way that it's been designed. I think that it doesn't really look like a Doctor Who product to some extent. It looks almost modern and a little bit different, which is definitely good, and a bit of a change considering that the previous vinyls have sort of followed exactly the same format to other Doctor Who merchandise. So as you can see along the top, we get the original television soundtrack, and then we get the sticker at the very top that lists all the details about the actual product itself. Doctor Who Five Doctors, music by Peter Howell, and then the 4th out of 8 classic soundtracks newly released on vinyl in this series. Then we get the new Jodie Whittaker logo at the very bottom, this time in the black version of the text, which in fact stands out quite a lot because naturally the background itself is a rather nice white colour. And I do also love the way that we have these seals of Rassilon here, almost printed onto the side there rather nicely. It does look very cool. Then of course along the very bottom, get the Five Doctors in a rather nice colourful design once again, almost like the paint has dripped down onto the actual text itself. And then we have music by Peter Howell at the very bottom, along with the BBC Radiophonic Workshops. Yeah, really nice. I absolutely love it. As I say, the only problem that I do have with it is I think that some people will not like it because of the consistency with the logo. Of course, the previous 2 releases in this line, being Survival and the Daleks, did have the classic Series 1, but since then we've actually got the new Series 11 logo in. So yeah, the consistency is an issue, but that said, at the same time, it's still really, really nice. Look on the back of the vinyl sleeve now, once again a similar situation in the design where we have this paint splattered effect with a few really nice colours there. Get the Sideman, get Barusa, and then we also get the TARDIS console in the side as well. And then along the side of this vinyl, we do in fact get all the details about all the different tracks on this release, including side A, B, C and D, because of course this is a double vinyl, and then we get some complete information at the very bottom. And if you want to look at all these in more detail, you can in fact check out every single track on the Silva Screen website, along with the title and the other information. Opening up the vinyl sleeve now and taking a look on the inside, once again we get this absolutely stunning design, once again with all the Doctors really nicely added in the very middle, including a larger image of the 4th Doctor, along with the other Doctors from the actual story itself. There we get a few of the villains around the side, including the Earthshock Cyberman there, Anthony Ainley as the Master, as well as a Raston Warrior robot, and also the Tomb of Rassilon there at the very bottom. Once again, I love the white design in the background, and then the way that the paint is almost splattered around the side of this. It is honestly probably one of my favourite products of this year. I'm not even going to lie, I think that it is absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, around the side here, we get a lot of information from Mark Ayres himself, giving a little bit of a write-up about the actual release and a bit of the music on it, a few details about it and how it was remade for vinyl. And then, of course, at the very bottom, we get Peter Howell from 2018 talking about, once again, a little bit about the actual vinyl itself, along with a few credits there at the very bottom. So yeah, overall, it's visually stunning. I presume that the CD itself will probably follow a similar design, but naturally, due to it only being a CD case, it won't be nice like this with the big massive vinyl sort of designs in there or anything like that. So yeah, I highly recommend, if you have a vinyl player or just want this version, just get it because it looks absolutely gorgeous. Both of the vinyls in this release are in fact just printed in your standard black design. However, we do have this label in the very middle that once again includes the seal of Rassilon in the very middle, along with the Doctor Who logo, the 5 Doctors, and a rather nice paint splatter coming along the side, which does in fact vary on each side of the 2 vinyls in this release. Overall, for the physical copy to the original television soundtrack of the 5 Doctors on double LP vinyl, this is by far my favourite Silva Screen soundtrack that has been released so far in this series. I absolutely adore it. Clayton Hickman has done a superb job in its design. I love how unique it looks. I also like how artsy they've gone with it. I love the paint splatters. I love the use of all of the Doctors, and even down to the smaller details, including the way that all the paint drips down into the text at the very bottom, and also down to even the seals of Rassilon on the actual vinyl themselves. It really is a lovely amount of detail. I just hope that the future releases in this soundtrack line are maybe inspired from this one, and it leads to maybe seeing a few more interesting and unique designs in the future, because I think that the vinyl sleeve format is definitely one way you can be a bit more experimental with the design as opposed to just a standard CD cover or something like that. So yeah, I highly recommend this product alone, even if you don't have a vinyl record player, to be honest, with it being very, very eye-catching. No matter what, it will look great on display. And yeah, as I said, probably my favourite release from this vinyl line so far, and I just hope that it sets a little bit of a trend for the future releases. Really, for the vinyl itself, generally overall, I'm going to put it down now because I'm going to compliment it forever. It is honestly, without a doubt, probably my favourite vinyl record that I in fact own. Talking about the actual vinyl itself, of course, with this being a double LP, it is a little bit different to the Invasion soundtrack, as it in fact says on the very back of this release. It does consist of vinyl record 1, which is side A and side B, and then of course vinyl record 2, which is side C and side D, and basically throughout the majority of it they have exactly the same music on. However, side A and side B is basically your original music that has been extracted from the original 90-minute cut version that aired on TV as a part of the 50th anniversary in the 1980s. And vinyl on this release that includes side C and side D in fact includes the remixes and remasters and reconstructions of the original soundtrack. So basically, after the airing of the original 90-minute omnibus version, they decided to cut down the 5 Doctors into a 4-part drama as per usual, much like with the majority of classic series Doctor Who, and basically that vinyl record consists of all of the music for that piece, so it uses all of the revised cues that we used in the 2nd edition of the story, along with the more modern music in there as well. So yeah, I do think that generally overall, the 2nd vinyl is a lot more cinematic and modern compared to the original version. I think that generally it's all down to taste. I think that if you're more of a purist when it comes to Doctor Who, you will probably enjoy the first original version more, because it of course contains the actual natural material as seen within the actual story. And then side C and side D, I think that actually sounds a little bit better on vinyl, because it just seems a bit more emphasised, especially the stuff in the Death Zone, where we have sort of the horns of Rassilon and kind of that big massive cathedral-esque music. That sounds like it impacts a lot more on the actual 2nd version. I think that generally it fits together a little bit nicer as well. So yeah, it's just down to personal preference really. I think it's quite hard to tell apart, to be honest. I think that only if you really, really listen you can tell what one is different, but it is still really nice that they've actually contributed both to this release, kind of having a definitive version of the different soundtracks put together. I think it only makes sense to start off with the actual theme tune because I love the theme tune very, very much. Of course, this is the 80s one, so yeah, it is really nice to actually hear it on vinyl. So far, I've heard the first Doctor theme tune, the second one, the seventh Doctor theme tune, and I think well, of course, the 2005 one as well with the Big Finish vinyls. And this one sounds really good. I love the way that the howl sounds on this one, the howl around as it's so called. Also, the prologue remix on side C and side D as well, which is a little bit different. In fact, kind of blends together 60s Doctor Who and the 80s Doctor Who. I do believe that was used in the ending credits of the Five Doctors, which is a really nice inclusion. Great for the 20th anniversary as well. It is a really great remix and sounds brilliant on vinyl. I love the way that it's been added together, and to be honest, for the novelty of actually hearing this theme on vinyl alone, this is kind of worth it, I think. But yeah, that's generally it for the theme tune itself. It sounds really nice, especially the prologue remix. Probably one of my favourite tracks throughout the whole story. Much like how I was saying in the Invasion review, there is a really big, wide variety, in fact, on this album of many different sounds. As I mentioned in that one, I was expecting something that was a lot more industrial and a lot more sort of mechanical, a little bit like the Tristan Carey First Doctor the Daleks vinyl. That was a lot more atmospheric. This one, in fact, includes some atmospheric stuff, some cathedral-esque stuff, and also some general Doctor Who harkbacks in that as well. So this vinyl, in fact, caters to quite a lot of audiences, because I feel like throughout the whole of all the different tunes throughout this release and all the different tracks, you do in fact have a few harkbacks to the original Doctor Who theme, the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. A track called Cosmic Anx, as I've got in my notes, which in fact sort of has a little bit of a blend of the original Radiophonic Workshop theme, and kind of you feel like it's the bass line of the original theme tune with kind of a few ticks added over the top, which is kind of the Gallifreyan sort of theme etched throughout Doctor Who's theme, which is kind of cool. It kind of shows them both overlapping, and I think that generally the actual soundtrack for this story is incredibly unique, and I think it wouldn't actually look out of place in Doctor Who today, because it does actually seem fairly modern, especially the second vinyl, which does incorporate obviously a bit more modern technology in there as well. Also atmospheric stuff on there as well. To start off with, one of the earliest tracks on this release is the Eye of Orion, which is in fact extracted from the scene at the very start of the story where Turlough is kind of doing some illustrations or something, and the Fifth Doctor comes out of his TARDIS and says something about the sort of landscape that they are in, which is quite obviously some morescape in the middle of nowhere and not the Eye of Orion, but you know, budget cuts. But yeah, I think that generally that music is really nice, very atmospheric. It's a great way to actually start up the release as well, very slowly and very atmospheric, as I say. There are more lighter hearted stuff on there as well, such as Great Balls of Fire, which is of course the scene from Bessie with the Third Doctor, Time Scoop following him whilst he's driving Bessie, and then he infamously looks in the mirror and then says that line. It's a really great upbeat theme, once again something of which that sort of made me quite smile throughout, to be honest, because it is a great little sort of tune. Doesn't really last very long. Then we have Dalek Alley in there as well, and also a few Cyberman tracks that are helpfully called Cyberman 1 and Cyberman 2, which is really interesting because, as it says in the sleeve notes for this release, Peter Howell never got the actual chance to do any compositions for any of the infamous classic Doctor Who stories that included the Cybermen or the Daleks, so this is in fact his only ever contribution to sort of the biggest enemies in Doctor Who history. So yeah, we do have some really nice tracks for the Cybermen in there that is incredibly metal-esque. In a way, it's something that I kind of expected from the Invasion one, so if you in fact have both of these vinyls, and you've seen my previous review when I was talking about the mechanical aspect and it being very industrial and cold, I was kind of expecting that on the Invasion. However, it's kind of on this track list, which I do think is very nice. Like Alley is kind of mixed up a little bit in the Death Zone music, which I think is rather nice. It has a lot of suspense behind it and a lot of drama as well. And once again, it is pretty much the polar opposite to some tracks like the Eye of Orion that is incredibly peaceful and laid back. Along with the Gallifreyan music in there as well, there is some great music called, I do believe, O Barusa, which is of course the main Time Lord from the story, in fact that guy right there. And he in fact plays the harp throughout that story, and for those of you that have seen the Five Doctors will of course know that the harp has a very sort of key aspect of the actual plot, so it's nice to have that instrument in there just as a little reference to the actual story itself and the narrative. And then also the Death Zone music, which I'm also going to tie into Rassilon, the Tomb of Rassilon is sort of the tower and all of that, and the Horn of Rassilon, I do believe that it's called. All of that music is quite similar. You do have the Horn of Rassilon for the majority of the tracks on this release, and it breaks through every single track that it is in. It doesn't exactly sound in place, and it kind of feels like Rassilon is almost interrupting sort of the Doctor's flow, which is kind of cool. But I think that generally the actual tomb stuff, where they first walk into Rassilon's sort of tomb, is very cool, very atmospheric. It sounds very powerful and very daunting as well. And once again, if Doctor Who does in fact ever bring back Gallifrey in the televised series, I would love to have music like this, as opposed to say this is Gallifrey. As much as I like this as Gallifrey, I feel it's been overused now. It would be nice to maybe return to the more cathedral sort of inspired music that is seen in the classic series. What I like mostly about the entire track list on this release is the fact that it feels like a celebration of the previous 20 years of the actual show, because throughout the entirety of all of the soundtrack, you do have little aspects from the different eras, such as there's a few moments where the TARDIS hum comes into a few of the tracks, and it feels really unusual because it does feel like 60s Doctor Who is almost in the background lurking, and then you have the 80s stuff over the top as well. It's a really nice celebration. I feel like the Five Doctors, and this is a perfect soundtrack for you. Absolutely love it. It is probably one of my favourite releases from this year as a whole, from all merchandise, because it is presented in a wonderful way, but also at the same time the actual content itself is brilliant. I really do like it. I think that out of all of them, this is my favourite vinyl record from the Doctor Who line so far. That's including the Record Store Day releases, along the Big Finish sort of episodes that have been released this year as well. And I just hope that in the future, maybe the designs of the upcoming vinyl sleeves will kind of take this one as a little bit of inspiration, looking rather artsy, looking rather different and very unique in design, because I think that with the vinyl sleeve format, you have a lot of room to use. Therefore, you may as well go incredibly experimental with it. So yeah, I highly recommend this one if you're a fan of sort of generally classic Doctor Who as a whole, if you're a fan of the Five Doctors, and also more importantly, if you want some classic Doctor Who music to add to your collection, because this is certainly an album that is worth listening to. Watching this review, I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember to check out my other vinyl record reviews, including The Invasion, which is just back there, and also my previous reviews of the Dalek soundtrack, as well as composed by Tristan Carey. I am still yet to pick up the Survival soundtrack. I do need to do that at some point, hopefully in the future, because I know that's a double LP, so I can't wait to listen to that one whenever I pick it up. But yeah, hopefully stay tuned for more vinyl record reviews in the future as well, because I'm thoroughly enjoying collecting Doctor Who vinyls, as it just offers a much different perspective to actually experience classic series Doctor Who, even after watching the episodes numerous amounts of times in the past. Thanks for watching this review. If you have any questions about this release, then please do leave them in the description below, and I will reply to them at some point in the near future. I shall see you all in more Doctor Who reviews, from the episodes, the Big Finish audio dramas, from the product reviews, from absolutely everything else, at some point in the near future. See ya. Bye for now.